You're listening to Civic Media. You can tune into any of our live shows on any radio station across the state with the Civic Media app. Find us in your phone's app store and listen anytime, anywhere.
Live across Wisconsin on Civic Media, you're listening to Mornings with Pat Kreitlow, powered by Up North News. Now, from our Lake Wissota studio, here is the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Kreitlow.
Hey there, Wisconsin. Good morning. It is 6:06 on this Monday morning, July 7th, 2025. It's another beautiful morning to have you here up north, live from Lake Wissota, from wherever you're spending your mornings listening across the Civic Media Radio Network. Or if you're listening on the app or watching us on social media, catching us as a podcast, we appreciate you starting your day and what we hope is an easy week right here. Got a question for you. Did you enjoy the holiday weekend? Did you get to do everything you wanted to do? Did you get to relax enough? Did you get to do enough? Did you get to boat enough? Grill enough? Whatever the case may be. I think I get to say yes to pretty much all of those questions. I got to do pretty much everything that I wanted to do, and we're going to talk a bit about that, about weekend plans. Dr. Kristen Lyerly will be here. She had a very busy week off traveling. She checked in a couple of times. There was also some news that went on leading up to the holiday weekend, and we'll talk to her about that coming up in this hour as well. So we've got a lot of ground to cover there. There's going to be biking, boating, grilling, live music, streaming TV. I mean, you name it. We've got it for today. It's going to be a little bit of a slower show. It's some folks taking an extended weekend. We've got Kristen here, but I don't believe we have Selena or Jimmy Koska or Jane Matinaire. So there'll just be a lot of chatter today and a little bit of a recap of things that happened last week. For example, there was the threat of disruption to the 4th of July parade in Minocqua that turned out to be a prank. Let's see, there's the state budget being done, and you have, I don't know how best to put it, discordant daycare providers, despondent Democrats, exasperated educators, something for everybody to not necessarily like in the budget. And including the Trump plan, where obviously a lot of rural hospitals are going to be impacted. But we'll also return to our regularly scheduled trade war that we haven't talked about for a while. But that's because President Trump put it on pause. He said he was going to work out 90 deals in 90 days. 90 countries were going to come flocking to the U.S. and begging him for better trade deals. The current total as we approach the 90-day deadline is two deals, and both of those are only half done or half baked. So are we going to ramp up the talk of a trade war with the rest of the world, or are the taco memes going to start pouring out across the internet again? Taco meaning Trump always chickens out. We'll also talk to his former bestie. The world's richest man once bragged he would use his fortune to solve world hunger. So much for that plan. Now Elon Musk is announcing plans to start a new political party. But between his Doge misadventures, strike one, and his ill-fated effort to buy the Wisconsin Supreme Court election, strike two, could Elon's third party become the third strike in an effort to buy his way into political power? We'll talk about that during the course of the morning as well, and certainly get some input from you if you'd like to share it with us. We'd love to have you use that Civic Media app to send us a text message or text something to 855-75-CIVIC, or use the comment section on the Facebook and YouTube pages, or you can email us radio@upnorthnewswi.com. Roger in Stevens Point, first comment of the day up on Facebook, says Woody was superb yesterday. Yes, we're also going to discuss the triumphant return of Brandon Woodruff to the Milwaukee Brewers pitching ranks. It was a nice weekend that way. The Brewers were on the road for 6 games, and they split that 6-game road trip, 3 wins, 3 losses. And so we'll get into that in just a little bit as well. Oh, I was mentioning texting us, putting something in the comment sections. You can also leave us a voice note. Again, head to that Civic Media app and use the voice note feature to record an audio message for us that we might play back on air as well. Brittany Merlot's forecast for the state for today goes like this. Nice, sunshine, comfortable. Upper 70s in most spots. Some places will see the low 80s. A little cooler near Lake Michigan. A very light northeasterly breeze for tonight. Increasing clouds, a 40% chance of scattered showers later on out west. Lows will be in the upper 50s in eastern Wisconsin to the mid 60s in western Wisconsin, and a light southeasterly breeze. Slight chances of precip coming into Tuesday for some spots, but otherwise really nice by and large today. Wednesday, Thursday, we'll get details from Brittany coming up next hour. But I say all this about the nice quiet weather because it means the top on the Jeep is down, and I don't want to jinx it. I had a very nice ride yesterday, and I'm going to invent some errands so that I can go for a ride today. But before we do all of that, we get through this show and our visit down in Madison Studio A2. One Parker Olson standing by. Mr. Olson, good morning. Did you have a good weekend?
Good morning, Pat. I did have a good weekend. Not a lot going on. It was kind of nice, you know?
Yeah.
Work a couple of Mallards games, get absolutely downpoured on.
Oh, no.
It's all part of the experience.
When was the downpour?
Oh, I believe it was Saturday. We knew we were going to get rained on. Mm-hmm. We went into that hoping that we would be able to get 5 innings to make an official game.
Did you?
Eventually, yes.
Okay.
we got a good 10-run first inning, and then the heavens opened up, and boy, did the sky cry on me. I was dripping wet and cold for the rest of the night because we didn't end up playing a full 9 innings after about an hour rain delay. So,
oh, gosh.
There you go.
You did all that while soaked to the bone.
Yep. I was shivering. I went home and took a bath to warm up.
I had the opposite thing where I was so hot and sweaty by the end of the 4th of July. I needed a cool shower close to midnight when we got back from Summerfest in Milwaukee. We did end up going. So where did we leave things off here? Thursday, we did the show here. It was my birthday, had some nice greetings, did a long pontoon ride, saw friends. And then Friday morning, the 4th of July, we hit the road for Milwaukee. And we did the entire day out there. We were out there from like 1 p.m. till almost midnight, seeing all kinds of live music. But there is that phrase, and I just mentioned it in the forecast, cooler by the lake. And that is often the case along the eastern edge of Wisconsin there. Not Friday. Not Friday. The way the air was hot and still, and what little wind there was coming from the west. And by the end of the night, I mean, we were as drenched as you were, but it was from sweat and humidity.
Yeah.
But we still had a great time. I love Summerfest. Absolutely love it. And got to see all kinds of different bands and music, some better than others. We'll get into that in just a little bit here, but still a lot of fun. Always good to do a road trip. And then yesterday was extremely relaxing and a little bit of grilling, made something new on the grill.
Ooh.
Made a little, is it called caprese or caprese when you make a salad or a chicken dish or whatever? Whatever it is. It's the thing with the mozzarella and the tomatoes. And so we took that and some chicken, and we wrapped all that in foil and put that on the grill and grilled some cut up potatoes and onions as well. And
eating like a king, Pat.
Oh my goodness!
Jeez.
I mean, we both realized we're like we grilled a few times already this summer. We are broaded out. We'll come back to the brats and the burger patties, and they're good traditional fare, but like we need something different. We got nothing else going on today. What are our options? And we ended up making something like that. So it was a very good grilling weekend, and it was a good hammock weekend. There was plenty of hammock time on Thursday and Sunday, I think it was. So
very nice.
It worked really well. Let's see. Alicia up on YouTube says, made it through the holiday weekend without sunburn and with a side of washing machine drama. Yes, I do recall seeing something about a filter being clogged or needing to be emptied out with her washing machine. So I was glad not to have. I had no hangups like that this particular weekend.
That's
some weekends you get waylaid by a house project or something else that comes up. That was not the case this time around. So I hope it worked out well for everybody. Coming up Thursday on the program, we're going to have Congressman Mark Pocan. There will be a lot to talk about now that President Trump's big bloated boondoggle of a budget bill has been signed. And I'm going to say, in hindsight, I am still a little surprised. I shouldn't be. At this point, I should be so used to Republicans falling into line, and they have been for Trump for years. Even though everybody knows the phrase, everything Trump touches dies. And he has, the first time around, he lost the House, he lost the Senate, then he lost the White House. The midterms may not look particularly good for him as well. And yet all these folks, they caved. Ron Johnson caved. Everybody, Derek Van Orden, who said he'd never vote for a cut to Medicaid or a cut to rural health, he caved along with every Wisconsin Republican. And so we'll talk to Congressman Mark Pocan about the impacts of that. And maybe by then he'll have some reaction as well to the third-party plans of Elon Musk. Because, won't it just be another version of the Republican Party, of the ones who, like Elon Musk, have been on the outs with Donald Trump? And even if that gets off the ground, the disenchanted, disaffected, never Trumpers, how much clout is that going to get? Isn't it just going to embolden everybody who has hitched their wagon to Trump's star and he is their ride or die? And yeah, it probably will be die, Alicia says there were rumors Glenn Grothman was booed at the Nina parade and left early. I did see something as well about Brian Stile finally making a public appearance again at a 4th of July parade and, getting some cat calls. Alicia also notes that, yes, it was a filter problem with her washing machine. The drawback of having dogs, the fur gets everywhere. Yes, I can totally see that happening. But yeah, as far as the Republicans coming home from Washington, they're continuing to, shall we say, not be entirely credible with what they say. And at the top of that list would be the congressman from Western Wisconsin, who, as we've discussed here, is a prolific tweeter. He tweets like there's no tomorrow, dozens of times a day sometimes. And in the flurry of tweets after Trump's bill passed, one of the tweets that he responded to talked about all the people who are going to get kicked off their health care. And he responds with a great big yes in capital letters and an exclamation point. And it makes the rounds. It's getting national coverage. And he eventually, his office, and then he said it was a mistake, that the yes was responding to a different tweet, something put out by the White House, and being very happy about the bill passing, not about people losing their health care. It's just that Derek Van Orden's on Twitter so often, it's hard to think that he only in that instance forgot how to use it. It was part of our question of the week in our Sunday newsletter, and we'll talk about that and more of the weekend's headlines coming up. But first, from the heart of America's up north, live from Lake Wissota, let me thank you for making this the place to spend part of your Monday mornings. I'm Pat Kreitlow. You are listening to the Civic Media Radio Network, powered by Up North News. Go to upnorthnewswi.com to get our newsletters. More in a bit.
You're listening to Civic Media. Stay up to date on the latest news and information for your local community and Wisconsin by signing up for our free email newsletter. Visit civicmedia.us/email to get started.
Welcome back. It's a Monday morning, just about 6:23 here, live from the Chippewa Falls studios here of Lake Wissota. Let's see. Here's Mike in Facebook saying, a prank organized by one of your own, giving me ownership of Kirk Bangstead of the Minocqua Brewing Company. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was going to talk about now or maybe when Kristen Lyerly got here, but yeah, let's get into it ever so briefly in just a minute here. First off, we haven't talked about sports yet, except to hint at the fact that Brandon Woodruff is back. Wow, was he back yesterday. Jackson Churio homered and drove in 3 runs as well as the Brewers beat the Miami Marlins 3-1 on Sunday, for the Brewers to take 2 out of 3 there and split the road trip overall. But it was Big Woo going 6 innings, 8 strikeouts, no walks, just 2 hits to win his first start in the majors since September 23rd of 2023. The 2-time All-Star hadn't pitched in the bigs since having shoulder surgery after the 2023 season, and he was practically perfect. So 6 innings pitched, that's 18 outs. He only faced 20 batters, 2 over the minimum for those 2 hits. And in both cases, it was by the same player and a rookie nonetheless. Every other Marlins batter got nothing. He had great stuff, and it was a real morale booster to the team. Coming up next is a home series against the LA Dodgers tonight, tomorrow evening, then Wednesday afternoon. And then this next weekend, the Washington Nationals come to town, and then it's the All-Star break. So you can catch the pregame Game 1 with the Dodgers starting at 6:05 on several Civic Media stations. Head over to civicmedia.us to learn much more about that. So, yes, let's talk Minocqua for a bit here. Kirk Bangstead, the owner of the Minocqua Brewing Company, who has been involved in so many disputes with local officials there. And I don't know if the local officials will have finally learned a lesson after this last episode. I mean, this all goes way back to the start of the pandemic in 2020, and Kirk still had a restaurant at the time. He put up a great big Biden-Harris sign on the side of his restaurant. And the town fathers, if you will, took him to task for that, saying it violated some kind of a sign ordinance. Ever since then, whether it's signs or he's now in a different location in Minocqua, parking spaces or all kinds of, what we used to call taillight infractions, the man has been at one end of a constant stream of legal harassment because they do not like how vocal he is to be one of the lone publicly liberal voices up in that area, who is also, to be fair, constantly picking these fights as he points out the inconsistencies in enforcement. It has also included a libel lawsuit after he said something egregiously stupid, but it was one thing amidst many others that should be protected speech against a newspaper that should know better. Anyway, things have come to a head a little over a week ago when Kirk Bangstead and 4 of his customers were arrested. They were heckling the publisher of the newspaper, who just happened to be across the street. Don't take the bait. They took the bait. They started heckling him. He called the police. It was apparently some violation of a harassment order or restraining order or whatever it was. Well, suddenly there was law enforcement overkill. The 4 customers were arrested. Kirk was arrested. Officers from like 4 agencies, 7 vehicles or something were there. It was embarrassing, quite frankly, to law enforcement and to town government there. Kirk was held in solitary confinement for something like 24 hours, to hear him tell it on social media. Then last week, he announced on social media that he was organizing a plan to disrupt the 4th of July parade in Minocqua, which, of course, was the big talk around town all week as he put up posts defending his right to have a First Amendment protest, to finally have a big public display of his unhappiness with the way that the town and the county and the courts have been politically harassing him. So there was all this talk about pushback. Would things get violent? Would there be mass arrests? In the end, there was no disruption, and Kirk recorded a video of himself on a tranquil little boat out on the lake, having a beer and singing a song. But he wanted to point out the foolishness that the town and others were going to such extremes because of his threat to disrupt a parade. They were willing to do all of this rather than simply stop picking on the man because they didn't like his parking spaces or his other equivalent of a taillight. He's trying to make the point here that for as much taxpayer money as they all have spent to pick on somebody because they don't like his politics, it makes a statement that when he makes a threat like this, and it was a threat, let's not kid ourselves here, but the overkill, once again, to which people responded, you would hope would teach them a lesson to live and let live. You don't have to like everything that everybody says about you. You don't have to like their politics. You don't even have to like their personal insults. But when you're in a position of power, that still doesn't give you room to do anything but wield it in the way that is good for the entire community and not just for your own little personal skirmishes. We'll talk to Dr. Kristen Lyerly coming up after this. You're Up North. Hey, time for that shameless plug for our newsletters at Up North News. You can head over to upnorthnewswi.com, sign up for our newsletters there, including this morning's edition, which, by the way, we have a new newsletter editor, Henry the intern. We're giving Henry the keys to the newsletter and saying, here, take this for a little test drive. And so in today's edition, he's put in a story of ours about some places in Wisconsin that look like they're right out of a storybook because of the architecture. And also a link to my story on the winners, losers, and liars from the Trump Big Bloated Boondoggle. So sign up for our unabashedly Wisconsin news over at upnorthnewswi.com. Oh, one more note about a comment that came in online. Yes, it is very true that Kirk Bangstad is not universally liked by Democrats and progressives, and the feeling is mutual. And he has, again, he's not a shy fella and has not been shy about calling people out when he thinks that they are mistaken or misdirected. Whether they are or not, he does not have that problem of shyness, shall we say. So I am in no way condoning pranking to threaten to disrupt a 4th of July parade and the days and lives of families. I'm just bringing it all back to the root cause. And the root cause is pretty clear, and it is an ongoing campaign of harassment by local politicians, business, media, you name it. And there's a live and let live, concept that seems really hard for certain people to grasp in areas where it's overwhelmingly red, or, to be fair, overwhelmingly blue. We sometimes have a problem with tolerance in this country, one way or the other. What you need are people who don't always agree with you, people who are going to challenge you. You need to be around people who sometimes don't even necessarily like you, but you put on a good show together. Let's bring in Dr. Kristen Lyerly, who, is back from her vacation and does a great job pretending to like me every Monday morning. Welcome back, Dr. Lyerly. What a fun trip you were on.
You're so crazy, Pat Kreitlow. I love you.
You had a great time, didn't you?
We had an awesome time. We drove across the country and ended up in Boston, and that was the best part. We were in Boston on the 4th of July, which was, I don't know about you, but that was a pretty heavy day for me. But we started it by going to the old State House, where every year they read the Declaration of Independence from this balcony, and people gather in the street and watch. And to stand there for those 10 minutes while he was reading the document that made our country was just really, it was overwhelming. And to be surrounded by others who got it, like understood the gravity of the moment, like to really bring it home. When it was over, they fired confetti cannons and it was this joyous event, and there was a band and somebody started the cheer, USA, USA, and it like immediately fizzled.
Oh no.
Immediately. Because you could tell, like, the founding fathers were not about fireworks and picnics.
Yeah.
They were dealing with a very challenging situation. They knew that the country was fragile. They knew that they had to be very thoughtful. And it was so much more than the bluster. It was the actual meaning of it. And that was exactly what I needed to see on the 4th of July.
Well, that's good. And, the Declaration of Independence, you go back and look at it or hear it in your case, and it's a lot of grievances against a monarch and somebody being, as monarchs are, dictatorial and authoritarian. And we have an issue in this country right now with folks who back in those days would have been described as monarchists and saying, well, yeah, we need that. We need a strong man leading us. And it's very telling. And very depressing, frankly, at times. It was not a great holiday for a lot of Americans, especially those who seem to see fellow Americans as cheering the disruption to people's lives, the disruption of people's health that's going to come from the passage of the Trump bill last week, what it's going to do to rural hospitals, what it's going to do to people's lives. Did not make for a great 4th of July. And it was only made worse by that tweet that Derek Van Orden now says was a mistake, but sure did look like he was cheering the fact that, all these people that they describe as deadbeats are about to lose their health care.
It wasn't just the tweet. It was also voting against rural hospitals and then going back to Governor Evers and asking him to save rural hospitals. I mean, who is Derek Van Orden? He's an angry man who is also full of contradictions, what does he stand for? I don't know.
No, we don't. Well, we don't. We know what he stands against, and that's anybody who dares to disagree, with him. And that's the thing. See, he could get away with the, it was a mistake thing, except that he and so many of his ilk, I love that word, are on record of saying all these people, whoever these people are, don't deserve health care. And it's even more disingenuous coming from a congressman who loves to talk about growing up poor, and yet has had no problem pushing the ladder away now that he's a member of Congress and a big time politician. So yes, he can say that particular tweet was errant, but the sentiments are all still there. And as I noted in our Sunday morning newsletter yesterday, I mean, it was almost comical the way that this guy passionately supports a bill, but then sends a letter to Governor Evers saying, hey, there's this thing in the bill. You're really going to sign that budget quick because this bill is going to hose you guys over. And so, yeah, the legislature had to rush with a bill because you got a congressman talking out both sides of his mouth.
Yeah, he doesn't really seem to have a clear purpose. It's just trying to, patch together some sort of quilt of contradictions that will work for him. And, back to the tweet, if it wasn't so consistent with so much of his other messaging, it would be believable that it was a mistake. But it was so in line. It was just like dropping the floor a little bit further. You wonder where the bottom is for Derek Van Orden, and he just keeps finding new lows. So, yeah, do I believe that it was a mistake? No, I don't, because he has a constant pattern of this kind of behavior.
And by the way, back to the bill, I mean, some of us follow this stuff regularly, and we're still discovering things that were tucked into this bill. The latest one I only learned about this morning just has me incensed. One of the big accomplishments of the Biden administration was Medicare being able to negotiate the prices of drugs, basically get bulk pricing for people on Medicare like you would do any place else. And when Medicare Part D first passed back during the George W. Bush administration, there was language put in that said, well, the government can't negotiate bulk pricing with the drug companies, which was insane. And it was there for almost 20 years before the Biden administration got rid of it. But I learned this morning that tucked into the Trump bill allows more medications to be exempted from the Medicare price negotiation program, so manufacturers can keep those prices higher. And taxpayers were set to save $5 billion over the next decade by negotiating better drug prices. That $5 billion benefit is gone now. Basically, Trump just gave Big Pharma another $5 billion to gouge all of us who need prescription drugs.
And these are some of the most expensive drugs out there. I mean, do you remember when the Biden administration first came out with this program, and it was these 10 drugs that were commonly used and that were incredibly expensive, and how excited people were to know that they were going to be able to afford their prescriptions again? All of that is gone. There's no fanfare. We're not hearing about it, but just wait, folks, because when that bill comes in the next month or two, and, especially come October when we are all re-upping our insurance plans and we're looking at the cost of our premiums and the cost of healthcare in the future, I'm very concerned at these delayed effects. Healthcare is, it's already profoundly broken, but it's about to get so much worse.
Oh my gosh. And as the Medicaid funding is cut and these rural hospitals lose what was left of their lifeline, it's only going to accelerate a trend that we've long seen. But there was other news last week, and so I'm going to string together these 3 dates because these 3 dates all have significance. There was June 24th of 2022, there was April 4th of 2023, and there was July 2nd of 2025. The first date was the Dobbs decision. The second date was the election of Janet Protasiewicz to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And the third date from last week was the Wisconsin Supreme Court taking action on an arcane statute from 1849. And you were on vacation when the news came that, the purported abortion ban in Wisconsin is no more.
I was also on vacation for Dobbs, so apparently I need to go on vacation either less or more.
Yes, yeah. Or be more cognizant of Supreme Court calendars. I don't know, but no, you're entitled to take trips. But yep, you had to interrupt it and talk to a lot of folks and react to the news.
Yeah, it was so good. We were hoping that we were going to get this judgment, but to actually get it, I don't know that it's actually sunk in because so much stuff has happened with the state budget and the federal budget since that time. But it feels so good to know that the Supreme Court recognizes that people in this state, well, I mean, looking at the laws that have been written since Roe v. Wade was initiated back in the 70s and understanding how it all comes together, how these laws supersede that law that was written in 1849. You would think that it wouldn't take all of this hubbub for common sense people to go, you know what, you're right. But the threats that we as healthcare providers have received because of this old law that's on the books and the fear that it's created with doctors and nurses and patients across the state, that's why all of this has happened. But it's settled now, for now, at least, until the next thing comes up.
Right. Alicia notes on YouTube the chills from your rundown of those 3 dates. Yeah, I mean, those are 3 very key dates for women's health in Wisconsin overall. But the state Supreme Court decision last week, yes, made that much clear that this is still very much an issue that state legislatures get to decide. And it just makes it all that more important next year in the 2026 elections that people vote as if that 1849 statute could come right back, because I believe you join me in promising the audience and the voters of Wisconsin that if a Republican wins the governor's office and if Republicans win the Assembly and the state Senate next year, language along the lines of a total 1849-style ban will take effect in Wisconsin. It just will.
It just will. Nothing is ever done. It's a tug of war. So we've got to keep pulling things in our direction, and our direction means people can get health care. Our direction means that moms and babies will survive and thrive and have good outcomes. And that's not what we're seeing in this country right now, because people can't get access to health care, which is only going to get worse because of the defunding of Planned Parenthood that will cause many, many people not to be able to access birth control and testing for sexually transmitted infections and other fundamental healthcare services.
Yeah, I mean, a whole lot of basic healthcare services are now going to be lost as a result of this bill that passed last weekend. We'll talk more about this in our next hour. But first, today's history lesson is next, as we always do, mornings up north and live here on the Civic Media Radio Network.
You're listening to Civic Media. Find the latest news, information, and archives of all your favorite shows on the Civic Media website, civicmedia.us.
It was on this day in 1984 that Prince got his first #1 hit, When Doves Cry. How can that be 41 years ago already? But anyway, it was from the upcoming movie Purple Rain, which apparently did all right. All told, Prince had 5 #1s in his career. By the way, 3 more that peaked at #2 and 3 more that peaked at #3. So, that's 11 top 3 hits. Not a bad deal. Did you own Purple Rain back in the day, Kristen?
Oh, yeah. I went to college in Minneapolis, and I had friends who went to college in Minneapolis because of Prince. Yeah.
Did you have to make a run out to the purifying waters of Lake Minnetonka and go for a swim like in the movie?
Oh, Lake Minnetonka is delightful. Strongly recommended to go to Shakopee and to tour Prince's house. It's well worth it.
Really? Okay. See, you hear Shakopee, all I think of is Valley Fair, where I worked for 4 summers in high school. Yeah. Let's see. So Prince had the #1 hit this day in 1984. This day in 2009, Michael Jackson's funeral was held at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. Doc Severinsen, remember him from the Tonight Show? Johnny Carson?
Nope.
He's 98 years old today.
Wow.
Yes, 98 today. And I will have a story about Doc Severinsen in a little bit when I talk about Summerfest, believe it or not. Nice little coincidence there. Happy birthday to one of the Beatles. Drummer Ringo Starr is 85 years old today.
He's got a big concert coming up.
He does?
I think in Las Vegas.
Huh. That would make sense.
Yeah.
Born Richard Starkey in Liverpool on this day in 1940. And yes, still performing, still touring. Again, that's kind of going to be our theme when I get to Summerfest is old guys who are still singing.
I saw Ozzy Osbourne did a concert.
Ozzy Osbourne did a big thing over the weekend, too. Yeah, kind of a farewell as well. On this day in 1969, John Lennon released Give Peace a Chance, a song that he and Yoko Ono recorded during their bed-in a Montreal hotel room back in 1969. If you're not familiar with the bed-in, look it up. President Eisenhower signed the Alaska Statehood Act into law this day in 1958. Time for another birthday. New York-born but California-raised Vonda Shepard. You might not know the name, but you probably know the TV theme song. Were you an Ally McBeal watcher back when it was on?
Kind of. I wasn't the faithful.
You weren't what?
I wasn't the faithful.
You weren't among the faithful? Yeah. No, it's one of those I kind of wished I watched, but again, was busy. The kids were young. There was a lot going on there. But I know it had its funny moments, and I liked her singing when she was kind of played the lounge singer in Ally McBeal. Comedian Jim Gaffigan is 59 years old today. On this day in 1981, President Ronald Reagan nominated Sandra Day O'Connor to become the first female justice on the U.S. Supreme Court.
What? Women can do that too?
Women can do these things.
What?
Yeah, we can. In Wisconsin especially, where we have more women on the court than any other state. Sorry, I just had to put in a plug for my girls.
As well you should.
Yeah.
On this day in 1985, Boris Becker became the youngest male player to win Wimbledon at age 17. And one more number one song for you. We're going to go all the way back to 1973 with Billy Preston.
I've got a song, I ain't got no melody.
Billy Preston was the fifth Beatle.
I was just going to say how different the world would be if the Beatles had stayed together and simply added Billy Preston. Mm-hmm. I mean, they would have gone on forever.
No.
Okay, maybe not.
John,
for,
no.
I don't know. He could have been. He was as close to a unifying force as there was. He was the anti-Yoko, as it were.
No.
There you go. And by the way, sliced bread is sold for the first time in a bakery in Missouri on this day in 1928.
That's when sliced bread happened?
1928.
Wow.
Yes, where it was pre-sliced and packaged that way. Yes. So
The greatest thing.
I know, the greatest thing in 97 years.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I got to be honest, there's next to nothing on the National Day calendar. So cue up the mystery music.
Oh, boy.
Because the one thing we want you to be aware of on this 7th day of July is that July continues to be Lasagna Awareness Month.
No. I just don't get it. It's hot. Like I don't want to heat up my oven for lasagna.
I don't either. I make a great lasagna. I don't want to make it right now, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll hang out over the grill like I did yesterday. That was a lot of fun.
Is this like a Southern Hemisphere thing, maybe?
Southern Hemisphere Lasagna Awareness Month? I don't know.
I mean, from Argentina or something?
Maybe it's because it's the time of year where you're not having lasagna and you might forget about lasagna.
Oh, that's a good point. It is Lasagna Awareness Month.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
this is why
It's
we
not
need
Eat
Parker.
Lasagna Month.
Yes. Maybe at some point there's a lasagna preparation month or a lasagna cooking month. We will look into this.
I think we're
That's a
onto
lie. I'm not going to look into this. Just continue to be aware of
And
your
hungry.
lasagna.
It's all a scheme by Big Lasagna.
I know. I'm going to get some grilling leftovers coming up. 2 more hours to go as we get rolling on one of these Monday mornings powered by Up North News. I'm Pat Kreitlow. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. Oh, wait. Parker, were you just going to sit and leave me hanging like that?
I've got enough music for a minute, so I was like, eh.
And
Sure.
look, we've lost poor Kristen. She's gone to look for the microphone. For folks wondering, Pat once again didn't look at his little note and was going off the old clock again and not the new one. So that was a minute early. I cut a minute off of Lasagna Awareness Month. Although if you think we could drag that bit out for another 60 seconds,
That was
you
where I was
are
going.
seriously mistaken. So coming up now after the news, we'll hear from Rob in Tigerton. We'll hear from meteorologist Brittany Merlot. No Selena Heller this week. She's off. Jimmy Koska is off for today. I don't think we have Jane Mattinair as well. It's just going to be a real quiet time, just you and me and a couple of friends or hostages, however you want to think of Parker and Kristen, on the Civic Media Radio Network.
The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.